Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and this is RegWatch by RegulatorWatch.com. It's hard to believe it could happen in Canada, a government assault on one's right to speak freely, to share information, and to engage in the operation of a lawful business without fear of penalty or fine. It's even harder to believe that I'm not talking about the recent and ongoing challenges resulting from the 2020 pandemic. No, these are the words RegWatch first used in February of 2016 to describe the Quebec provincial government's draconian measures in its maniacal war to eradicate vaping. Joining us today to unpack the battle to ban vaping in Quebec is John Xydous, owner of 4 vape shops in the province of Quebec and regional director for the Canadian Vaping Association. And also joining us is David Levesque, founding partner at Digital Smoke Supplies, who has been instrumental in helping the Quebec Coalition for Vapors' Rights, or CDVQ in the French acronym. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us, Brent.
Look, I don't need to tell you two how hard of a time vapors in Quebec have had it over the past few years fighting to save vaping, or how hard it's been to engage English Canada with what's been going on in your province. But now that Nova Scotia and PEI have fallen to flavor bans and vape taxes, and with the federal Liberal government mulling over a flavor ban for the entire country, it would seem to me that it's very important to really get to the bottom of what's been going on in Quebec. John, let's start with you. How dire is the outlook right now for vaping in Quebec?
Right now, in Quebec, it could not be worse. The outlook could be as bleak as when Nova Scotia first announced their intention to ban flavors. We got our announcement on December 9th from our Minister of Health, Minister Dubé. Out of all the recommendations he was given from the special intervention group, he said that he wants to move quickly on 2 of them. Now, those 2 would be to ban all flavors except for tobacco flavor and to limit the nicotine at 20 milligrams. So effectively, it would look just like Nova Scotia, and we would expect the same disastrous outcomes.
So in the end, right now, it is all about flavors.
It is, yeah.
David, we'll dive into, obviously, flavors in a bit more detail later in the show, but right now, give us a top line on what's going on, both at the national level and then also in Quebec.
Well, basically, we've tried to give tools for vape shop to help the vapors communicate to their elected officials. So lately, tobaccokills.ca went live as a platform where vapors or non-vapors, anybody that relates to harm reduction tools, can contact their MNA and tell them what they think about vaping. And the earlier stage of that was Coalition droitdesvapoteurs.ca, which is basically the same tool sending emails to the MNA. The important thing is that we try to give a voice to the end consumer, because us as people from the industry, our opinion comes across as bias. And it's important to remember that there's 500,000 people at risk. There's 1 million smokers in Quebec, so 1 out of 2 will die from this. But when it comes from us, it's irrelevant. If it comes from people that have lived it firsthand, it has a lot more impact.
Walk us through, David, tobaccokills.ca. So exactly what happens here? When
you log on, if you scroll down, you'll see 2 options. One French, one in English. And as you click the contact your MP, this number needs to be adjusted. We're close to 100,000 emails sent at this moment. And depending if you're a former smoker or you just support harm reduction, you can click this and it'll lead you to a page where you punch in your name, your address, and it'll send an email to your local elected official.
And why is this so important?
Well, like I said, it has more impact when it comes from the end consumer itself, because our opinion, as mentioned, is a bit biased. And every vapor counts as far as votes. The truth of the matter is that these people, you take that away from them, chances are they're not voting for you next election. So it's important to show the strength of numbers of how many people it affects, and hopefully guide elected official into taking the right decision.
So you said now there's over 100,000 emails sent to government officials, to politicians.
Correct. 100,000 users have sent emails to the elected officials.
So, David, how important is it then to reach the politicians? I mean, is Health Canada not, shouldn't they be a target of tobaccokills.ca? Why the politicians?
Well, the truth is, we have industry leaders like John at the CVA that have been trying to communicate with elected official for months, if not years, and the door's been closed. Ever since we managed to get those emails out to them, they've received tremendous amount of emails from vapers or people that support harm reduction. And since then, it's created an opening. Daryl at CVA has managed to get a lot of sit-down discussion and open discussion about our industry and about our involvement and reducing the harm in this country.
I would imagine, at least in our experience, that the politicians are getting a one-sided view of vaping, and that's what's coming from mainstream media.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And at the beginning, when we started, if I can add, when we started in Quebec, the French campaign, you have the auto reply and the fabricated responses that you're getting from these politicians. And the one thing they would mention was, we're doing it to protect youth. There was no mention of the smokers. There was no mention of any kind of health benefits or anything like that. And over time, as we started sending them, we started to see that they would recognize that they had to put more importance into tobacco use and to the adult smokers. So I did notice a change over time in my interactions with the government.
John, let me ask you this. Why is saving flavors so important?
Why is saving flavors so important? There are studies now that are coming out to show how flavors actually help in the transition from smoking. And considering that we believe and we know from science that it's less harmful, you want to encourage people to make the switch. But I take it a step further and I say, well, you're basically painting the solution as the enemy. So that message goes out into the public, and then the perception, which we've been battling ever since EVALI and even before that, it gets ruined. Vaping seems just as bad or maybe worse than smoking when it's not. And that's what we're concerned with as well.
John, seeing we have you here, why don't you provide us some backstory about Quebec and the war on vaping, because it really did start there. A lot of the huge, massive battles were first lost in Quebec, if I could put it that way.
Are you referring to the Bill 44 or?
Yes.
Well, as you know, in 2015, or I think it even started in 2014, because they started talking to or had a public audience before implementing their new law. And so at the end of November 2015, during the very first Vape Expo, I was at the Vape Expo vaping, and that's when we found out that you're not allowed to vape indoors. So everybody was wondering if they were doing something illegal or not. But anyway, fast forward a little bit to 2016, we decided to start a challenge in Quebec to defend vaping and against those regulations, most notably the fact that we could not even make a comparison to smoking. So if a customer came in and said, is this actually better than smoking? I can't answer, can't give them no science. So one of the other things that we were also fighting for is the right to sample and to try before you buy, because as you know, there's nicotine strength, there are flavors to choose, there's a wattage, there's a lot of different variables that make the success factor, if you buy the wrong kit, you're not going to have any success making the transition. So those points, and as well the right to market to smokers, let them know that there is a safer alternative. Those were the main points that we were challenging. And CVA over the years spent over $270,000 in legal fees to cover these costs. So you can imagine how expensive it could be to defend it. And I don't know if you want me to go all the way fast forward to May 9th of 2019. That's when we actually got our judgment. So we had to wait a full 4 or 5 years before we get our judgment. And that's when the judge said that First of all, he sent the government back to rewrite the laws and suspended them, but left them in force while giving the government the time to decide what they wanted to do. But the things that they struck down was the right to vape inside a vape shop, the right to tell smokers that there's a safer alternative, and the right to remove the frosting on our windows, which was a bit of a surprise because no one in the industry really, we think it's a good thing to frost the windows and not necessarily against it. And the right to advertise directly to smokers and tell them that there's a safer alternative. So those were the points. However, in the government here, our public health director, Mr. Arruda, and the Attorney General decided to appeal that decision. Now, most recently, we finally got our chance in court. On the 22nd of March, the appeal was heard, and it was quite interesting, to tell you the least. But I think we did very well in the appeal. I know there was the Canadian Cancer Society who came there with what's his name?
Rob Cunningham.
Mr. Cunningham. Yes, that's right. So he was joined onto the file to provide additional support for the government.
So what we have here was a whole series of restrictions that were basically deemed to be unconstitutional.
That's right, and it was impeding a citizen's access to a safer alternative that would improve their health.
And then the Quebec government appealed that decision, and that's where we're at right now.
That's right. But we had our day in court, so we did have the appeal. And our lawyer, I stand by her 1,000%. She did an amazing job because if anybody watched it, the Attorney General, he brought up a couple of things that was challenged by the judge in terms of the Bedford case. He was trying to argue that the Superior Court does not have the right to make constitutional decisions. And the judge corrected him to say, no, the Bedford case actually showed that Superior Court is allowed to make constitutional decisions. So they look kind of not very organized there. And the second thing was the Canadian Cancer Society. Well, they were redoing the whole process. They were doing the whole court challenge. They brought in new evidence. They brought in new EVALI numbers. They brought new youth fear-mongering slogans to the table. And Audrey, once again, reminded the court that it's not a trial. It's an appeal, a place where you defend the positions you made in court, not to bring new positions. So I feel confident, and the judges, there's 3 of them, assigned to make the decision together, as opposed to one in the initial trial. And they're supposed to come out with their decision within 6 months. So September, October timeline, I'm hoping we're going to throw a big party and find out that we have a court case to defend to set precedents in Canada and hopefully have a glimmer of light, because all we see now is protecting youth with no regard to smokers' health.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how frustrated are you? But you do sound hopeful.
Yeah, well, it is frustrating. They're playing with our lives. And that's why when you see on Facebook and on Twitter, people, saying, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to put in my body. These people are upset, and understandably so. We're playing with their lives. We're pushing them back to smoking. When your life is threatened, when your family's lives is threatened, you get really pissed off. So I understand them to a certain extent, yeah.
What is it about Quebec anyhow that makes them so anti-vaping?
Well, I mean, Quebec is known to take the harshest route on whatever subject it is. It's always been the case. I mean, if you want to take COVID, for instance, I mean, we were the first one to be confined, which with reason, but we're the only one in North America, or maybe even all of the Americas, to have a curfew. They always take things a notch further. I mean, I don't know if it's the separatist or what it is, but that's the way they roll. So
is there any hope that there will be a semblance of common sense in Quebec ever, or is it just going to be a nightmare fight the whole time?
I look, I mean, if we look at 2015, those regulations, I mean, they were strong, and they are strong. They put us with tobacco, and from there on, once you're part of tobacco, you got to follow the rules of tobacco, which is crazy because we should be able to educate customers I mean, vaping is not as easy as lighting up a cigarette. But beyond that, to be honest, I mean, we were good from 2015 to 2020. I mean, if it wasn't for, I don't know that if it wasn't for Eval I don't know that we would be having this discussion today, because that's what sparked everything. And it was the Liberal that put pressure on the current government saying, what are you going to do about all those kids dying from vaping? So beyond that, I think, yes, it's harsh, but business, vaping business as an industry in Quebec has been thriving. It's been positive. The problem is the public opinion, the perception, driven by media, that possibly stop our growth. I mean, we still have 1 million smokers in Quebec. That's 1 out of 8. I mean, I'm baffled to see how many people are smoking in their cars. So we should be allowed to take this further and to make a bigger dent in the smoking population. But with what's being put in place, it's not going to happen.
What is being threatened right now in Quebec that can make things much worse?
What is being threatened? If you ask me, they're threatening the second largest market for vaping in Canada. We just recently passed the $1 billion mark. There's about per year in vaping revenues in Canada. We have 400 vape shops in Quebec, so all of those are at risk, just like Nova Scotia, Southern Fall, and over 2,000 jobs. But that's the economic side of it. The customers that go in there, we got an average of 12,000 to 18,000 transactions per day. So where are those transactions going when they ban flavors? Where do they go when they're either going to smoking or whatever is left on the high concentration of nicotine? It's a tragedy that when they put these measures in, like for example, Quebec ban flavors. Where's the impact study? Have they looked at what the impact is to smokers? There's 14 Quebecers that die every single day. There should be at least a study that says what impact this has on the smoker. It doesn't it doesn't even say what impact it has on youth. It just says we believe that it's going to curb youth. But is there anything that actually demonstrates it will have an impact on youth? As far as I could tell, minors are not allowed in my shop. So how are they getting access to it? It doesn't make sense to me the way they're going about it. And they really need to take a hard look and start thinking about smokers.
So go ahead.
Sorry. And I think there's a bit of a disconnect between smoking and vaping because, as a vape shop owner, you cannot survive on tobacco and flavorless. You just can't. So in their mind, well, we're not banning vaping. People can still vape. Then they go to convenience stores. Convenience stores do not do the work that vape shops do. I mean, the education, the troubleshooting. I mean, there's a lot of things involved in vaping that I think these elected officials do not comprehend. And if you speak to them, which I've spoken to a bunch of them, they have no clue. All they know is that there's a youth uptake and this needs to be tackled. And that's the only way they can comprehend that they know how to fix it.
If I were to be fair to Health Canada and all the people that are making decisions, some of the regulations did make sense, right? We don't want to sell to minors. Makes sense. We want to hide our products so it doesn't appeal them. We want to take off the animals and characters and not call it cotton candy or something like that. It all makes sense because we need to make it mature. We're targeting mature smokers. So there's no need to put those. It definitely seems like that would be to entice youth. But when you look at how they went about it and legalized it, but did not put any controls in place to make sure that the big tobacco, who had the big finances to run through this industry aggressively and push their products to the average consumer, in my opinion, the real reason we have a youth uptake is because government regulations were not properly thought out. If they properly thought it out, they would put restrictions in place for those big pockets and make sure they weren't able to run free for a year, 2 years after legalization. And now they're about to put 20 milligrams and think about which black market is going to grow once you ban anything over 20 and how easy that is to get into a black market. And then I fear they're just going to turn in and scapegoat us again and say it's the vaping industry. Look at them. We banned it and now they flooded the black market. So the approach the government's taking is like a double-edged sword, in my opinion.
Do you think, and this is to both of you, do you think that the government has been captured by the nonprofit health groups and, third-party lobby groups and their interests?
I mean, captured, I'm not sure what you mean by captured, but definitely influenced. But it doesn't only come from them. It comes from the mainstream media as well. I mean, you make John Doe will live an extra 20 years because he stopped smoking at 39 and started vaping is never going to make the headlines. But kids that might have multiple sexual partners has made the headlines like everywhere, back in February, I think, when so it's all that misinformation led by the media. And then you have all these health groups that just get on top of this and feed it. It's they want to get reelected. So what's an easy issue? I mean, often you'll get that MNA that wants to make the news and needs a topic to kind of get in front of cameras. This is what we're dealing with.
Oh, and one thing I could add to that, because in Quebec, we have a coalition, the Coalition for Tobacco Control in Quebec. And recently in the news, they reported that the government gives this association a whole lot of money and even retirement packages. It's a lobby. So essentially, they're paying a lobby to lobby themselves to put stricter tobacco regulations, as well as some other things like sugar, like taxing sugary drinks and stuff like that. And they dare say that our industry, the independent vaping industry, it has a conflict of interest with big tobacco when they're paying their own lobbyists to lobby themselves. There's a real hypocrisy going on in the echelons of power here, which I don't really understand. It makes me very bitter when I look at it. And when you do take a look now at that association, you wonder why it looks like like their feed looks like it's been curated to only show negative reports on vaping. Where's all the positive? It's not even showing up on their radar. Like it doesn't exist.
Who or what organization is the biggest anti-vaping proponent in Quebec and Canada, for that matter?
It's called the Coalition Québécoise pour la lutte contre le tabac, which basically means a coalition of Quebecers for tobacco control.
And David, in Canada, who do you think?
Well, I mean, you have the Heart and Stroke, you have the Cancer Society, you have all these guys, which is crazy because 30% of all cancers are caused by smoking. So on one hand, you have the Cancer Society in the UK promoting vaping as a safer alternative to smoking. And here, I mean, they don't talk about cigarettes anymore. They barely talk about cigarette. It's all about vaping.
What do you think is driving this mad obsession with vaping?
It's hard to put your finger on. I think they live in a perfect world where they believe they can achieve a smoke-free society. It's a very noble thing, and it would be great if we can achieve that. But I think it's unrealistic because there are more people like me, for example, who don't want to quit. I don't want to quit. I enjoy vaping as I enjoy drinking a fine wine. So you could batter that all you want, and there's a certain segment of the population that will always be that way. The important thing is to reduce the harm.
Well, I think I would add to this. I mean, Brent, you spent, I don't know, countless years trying to figure this out, right? So if anybody knows, it's you. But from my end, maybe they want the best possible world, but I think most likely it's money and power. That's what comes down to. I mean, you got big pharma, you got big tobacco. I mean, treating those cancers. We had a big protest here in Quebec, and there was a what's a pneumologist?
A pneumologist
that was there, and he said it costs $60,000 a year. $60,000 to treat a cancer in Quebec. It costs $40,000 a year to put a nurse in charge of harm reduction and helping people quit smoking. There's only 3 in the whole province on countless amount of hospitals. They don't want to put the money there, but they're treating cancer and just spending that money there. I mean, why? Why would you do it this way? Why not put your money, find the leading cause of the problem and try to tackle it? They're funding cancer research. You don't need research. Smoking causes 30% of it. Why? What are you searching for? Fix the issue. So this is what we're dealing with. So you gotta wonder why. And I think money, power, greed, probably. I mean, it's the main reason. It's the main reason for most problems our society's dealing with. The planet, everything is money, power, and greed.
Is it fair that the regulator is using a small snapshot of time in order to essentially remove access to these products and choice to adults in Canada who need it for harm reduction?
It's definitely not. It's not fair. And it's the same thing they're doing with the Quebec regulations. They took a snapshot about 2 years ago on EVALI. They've never updated it since. So for them, EVALI is caused by vaping. And I don't know if I don't want to call our government liars or anything like that, but at the very least, it's extremely ignorant because they have all the proof now. They have all the studies, and they've instead of clarifying it, they've called now vaping. It includes whether it's THC products or whether it's nicotine. It's all vaping to them. They make no distinction, so there's no need for them to even try to get away from EVALI. It's the same thing to them.
Well, and at the same time, I would say, look, whether the data is 2 years old or not, youth uptake needs to be addressed. The only thing is that they're not taking the right approach because in Quebec, for instance, we have the highest success rate of inspection in the country. So when an inspector send a minor to buy a vape product, we comply at the highest rate nationally. So that's not where the kids they get a hold of the product. They get it elsewhere. They get it whether it's online, whether it's through friends, whether it's because of the advertising that we spoke about. All this stuff needs to be addressed, but banning flavors is not the right way because that's not the purpose of when kids try vaping. I mean, I was smoking cigarettes at 12 years old. It wasn't because it tastes good, just because cool people do it. I want it to be cool, and that's what you do when you're a teenager.
And isn't it just semantics anyhow when it comes to flavors? Because there's still flavor in tobacco. That's a flavor, so it's not unflavored.
Yeah, this is nonsense. I mean, the tobacco flavors are made with different aromas, from nuts, vanilla, different things. If you really wanted tobacco flavor, I mean, we'd probably have to just put tar in the bottle and here you go.
Flavors are everywhere, right? Tangerine Dream, Vanilla Breeze, and all of these different things. And this seems to be fine in the cannabis industry. And the flavors are just okay. I know they're looking at those too, but it's very, one place it's okay, the other place it's not.
David, let me ask you about an example of one of the ways in which the organized groups are attacking vaping. There was this very interesting thing that happened with CN Towers a few weeks back. What was that?
Well, basically, this doctor, Nicholas Shaddy, which led the Anti-Vaping Awareness Day, which was backed by the government of Canada. And to basically showcase his initiative, they decided to put the CN Tower lit up in black and yellow. The thing that they did not do is that it's really an anti-vaping day awareness for kids. But the CN Tower didn't specify that in their post. So this is the type of things we're dealing with here, is that there, as you see, it was not so clear what it meant or what it was for. So it's this type of behavior that is tainting our industry and what we're doing. If there was some sort of clarity, which they kind of said after the fact, but if it's not in your main post, if you're not clearly stating what you're doing, that kids should not vape. Look, I agree, kids should not vape. You want to put that? You want to lit up the CN Tower black and yellow and say kids should not vape? Then fine. But Anti-Vaping Awareness Day, when we're 95% less harmful than tobacco and we're helping people every day of our lives, I mean, it's far-fetched.
John?
Oh, the first numbers I saw when I first got in the industry about 5 years ago, the population was sitting at around 45%, which means about 45% of the population believed that vaping was a safer alternative. But after EVALI struck, after all of these campaigns, battery explosions, and all of these clickbait reporting tactics occurred, we're now at around 10-15%. So can you imagine, there are smokers, a lot of them out there, smoking that cigarette, no idea that there's something that could save their life. They've never tried it because they fear that they're going to add another deadly consequence to their life. It's a shame. It's a shame.
I'll give you an example. During that period of EVALI, going outside, vaping, smoker right next to you, looking at you, and basically, that thing's going to kill you. I mean, that's the extent of where we've come. And posts like this just feed that message, that narrative.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself too as well. As a former smoker and a vapor, I've been at a barbecue with somebody that I've smoked a billion cigarettes with, and that person still smokes. And the total derision around the vaping. Well, at least we know what's in a cigarette. So let me just point out, New Brunswick Health Minister says legislation pending as opposition calls for clampdown on youth vaping. It just never ends. Let's have a quick listen to this.
New Brunswick's health minister says further legislation to combat youth vaping is on the way, as the opposition calls for more to be done. Health Minister Dorothy Shepherd tabled legislation this week that would create a registry of businesses selling vaping products as part of the effort to crack down on the use of e-cigarettes by minors. Opposition parties have said the bill won't actually address the problem of youth vaping, but Shepherd says more is on the way.
This is only the first bill that's being brought forward, and this is about regulation and licensing. And so there is more to come.
When asked if further legislation could impose bans on flavored vape juices and raise the required age to purchase vaping products, Shepherd was direct.
Damn straight.
These sorts of measures are being called for by the Canadian Cancer Society. In a survey of New Brunswick youth, they found that over 90% who vape used flavors, and almost half said they'd stop if flavors weren't available. Liberal health critic J.C. Demore introduced legislation in November that would ban flavored vape juice, but the bill has sat on the order paper untouched for months. He says he wants to see the issue addressed by the government.
If you look at all those organizations, what they are looking for, it's really to eliminate the flavor, like the bill that I have presented.
Megan Mitten says she wants to see the restrictions put in place to discourage youth from vaping, even if it is still useful for older New Brunswickers.
I think there is an argument for this recent vaping technology to exist with the tobacco flavor to help adults to transition off of cigarettes.
Nova Scotia and PEI have already banned the sale of flavored vape juices, and PEI has recently raised the legal age to purchase all tobacco and vape products to 21. Silas Brown, Global News, Fredericton.
Damn straight.
Damn straight.
When they say that 90% of youth likes flavor, it's the same thing for adults. And that's the problem, is that there's three sides to a story. There's one side, the other, and there's the truth, what's in the middle. So they always look on one side. They don't even look on the other. It is, I said earlier that it's often led by politician that needs their 5 minutes. Well, you see it there. I mean, it's always the opposition. How does the opposition make the headlines, make news, try to make some noise to get elected next go around? Well, it's always the opposition.
I can't help but think that what we're telling smokers is that the only thing you can do is quit. And when they fail over and over in quitting, we we still tell them the only thing to do is quit. It's about time we start waking up and start actually talking about harm reduction in terms of tobacco. It's a leading cause. I don't know. I feel like we have some hope. We have a lot of people working very hard, so I won't give up on the hope, although it seems pretty dire. I'm hoping the government sees the wisdom behind our presentations when it's time for the public audience and gives us the exemption the same way they did in 2015, and gives us an Ontario-like model where flavors are only available in vape shops. I know it's not a perfect scenario, but it actually provides the government with an excellent tool to control, because you go down from 4,000 or 5,000 locations of sale to about 1,000, and we have a track record, like David was saying, 95% of the time we're not selling to youth. So entrusted in the vape shops. And then over time, hopefully we could change and influence the politicians to see the science and the facts that we've been presenting them and get better outcomes, because truly we need to have vapes where smokes are sold.
Gentlemen, it's pretty certain here, now that we've seen what's been going on with the pandemic, that there's a bit of a safety culture going on. You know, it's a precautionary principle kind of based culture, you know, make sure that you keep people safe. And so I wonder how much you guys think that some of the vaping might be wrapped up in that, because of course the idea here is that we have to just wipe the market of all of these vapes in order to make sure that we keep our youth safe.
Well, you know, it's funny because you're asking the question, but you know, you're talking about vaping. You want to keep people safe, get them off cigarette. I mean, that's the first thing. You want to keep people safe, get them off cigarette. And we're here offering a tool that is 95% safer than cigarette, which we can't say. We cannot say it, but it is, and it's proven. So you want to help people, keep them safe, get them off cigarette.
Yeah, and if I may, we can't underscore the black market. It's responsible for tainted supplies, and not only the vaping industry of THC, which we saw in the United States, we see it as well with the opioids that are killing people by the scores. So many people are dying. After decades of prohibition, why are we going back to prohibition? A regulated supply is the safest bet for all of these products. There is a messaging coming out, and I see it coming out from the World Health Organization, and it has impacted all the way to our province, because I don't know if you know, but I have never met any of government officials here except maybe a local the opposition critic or something, but they refuse it. And the health minister here, Arruda, in my first attempts to meet with him and at least have a discussion. You know, we've done that in every other province. There's no reason Quebec couldn't have a discussion. I still speak to my ex-wife. You know, everybody could talk, but no. And they gave us the article 5.3 of the World Health Organization that says you will not be influenced by big tobacco, so you can't meet with the industry. And so they blanket us as tobacco, so they can't meet with us. The only chance we're going to get is a 15-minute or a 5-minute public audience where I get to present why I think they should do X, Y, and Z for vaping, and that's it.
If you were able to sit down with officials in Quebec, John, what's your bottom line message for them?
My bottom line message is you need to be on the ground and speak to the people who are impacted, the smokers, the vapors, and you need to take their data and their science to the table that you are at when you're speaking to the vape orgs and challenge these anti-vape organizations with this data. And you have to make sure that they're not the only ones you're consulting, because you're putting yourself at risk as a politician of now taking that conflict of interest that these anti-vaping orgs have into your regulations. You need to have a balanced approach, and the best way to do that is talk to the people on the ground, ask them how their health was improved through vaping. Some of them have been vaping already for 10 years. You can definitely get some data from there.
And David, finally, what's your message then, say, for consumers out there that are vapers that haven't done much yet? What can they do?
Well, look, I was thinking about this. I think that The reason why a lot of people haven't done much is because they just can't believe it's happening. They don't think it's going to go through because we're in Canada. We're not in some third world country that's corrupted. And I mean, we're in Canada. We could, Trudeau said he was going to take his decision based on science. The science is there. They all said it. It was going to be based on science. So, but it's coming. To what extent, we don't know, but it's coming. It's in writings. So if you haven't done it yet, go on tobaccokills.ca and contact your elected official.